Shavuot Tov, it's Mitzvah Shabbos, and we are up to the Gemara Daf Chaf. We will learn two blot tonight. We'll take a pause in between. So just to recap what we did yesterday's Gemara, we had a machlekes between Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon, and that is that you have to wash your hands, kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, and your feet before you do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. According to Rebbe, every morning, regardless of what you were doing prior, every Amud Shachar, you have to wash your hands again. And according to Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon, if you wash your hands once and you were not Masiach Das, that you were always conscious of the fact that you have to be pure, then even 10 days later is all right. And this is actually the very same machlekes that we have regarding the bracha of learning Torah, Birchas Torah. Do we say that every morning, regardless, you have to make a new bracha Birchas Torah? Or do we say only if you went to sleep, only if it was Hesach Hadas? And the nafkamina is if you go sleep during the day, whether you have to make a bracha again when you wake up or not. Okay, so we're up to the Gemara Daf Chaf, and the name Ilfa comes up again. We've had him a few times. Ilfa was a friend of Rabbi Yochanan in the Gemara Tainis, and there was a baskel that says that if somebody will become a Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Yochanan heard that Ilfa didn't, so Ilfa went into business, but he said that he's as sharp as ever, and we have him a few times in Kutch. So Rabbi Yochanan quotes him. Obviously, they were good friends. We're up to 3 lines on the top of the page of Chaf Amar Aleph. So let's begin. Says the Gemara, Ki Asar Abdimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, based on the argument we just had. So the argument between Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar and Rab Shimon was regarding the person who washed his hands, whether you have to wash again every day or not. So we're now going to talk about the actual source of the water, which is the kiyar. The kiyar is a clay sharis. Now, we normally know that there's a concept in the Beis Hamikdash called lina, just like we talked about till now about the person. Lina is that if you leave something in a clay sharis overnight, the following day it is puzzle. So, and you can't use it anymore. We're now going to discuss the water in the Mei Kiyar. We're going to learn later they put a pulley system in place. So they lowered the kiyar down to the bottom, and it connected itself, like Hashaka, connected itself to the spring water around. So therefore, it was never lina. It was never sitting in the clay shutters overnight. And the question is, the Mei Kiyar itself, if you left it unattended overnight, you didn't lower the pulley, what happens to the water? And why is that a question? Because we just said regarding the beneficiary of this water, there's a machlekes Rebbe and Elazar whether there's a concept called lina. According to Elazar, even 10 days later, it's good enough. You don't have to worry about washing again. So perhaps the source of it, the water itself, also is not the same problem. Or do we say no? It's a clay sharis. The key at the end of the day is one of the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash, and then the rules of clay sharis kick in. So that's Gemara's question. Says the Gemara, Ki Asar Abdimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Boy Ilfa has a question. L'divrei ha'omer, according to Rabbi Elazar but Rab Shimon, who said, when I've Chaf Amar Aleph, 4 lines on the top of the page. This is a follow-on from the Gemara you learned yesterday, the argument of Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon, whether you have to wash your hands again every morning or not. So according to Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon said you don't have to wash your hands. There's no effect of lina regarding washing your hands and feet. Mei Kiyar ma. What about the water that's inside the kiyar?
We'll get a scan in a few weeks' time.
Please mute yourself.
Michael, mute yourself.
Mei Kiyar, the water of the kiyar. Mao, what should it then be? Sheyif salu. Does the water itself becomes puzzle if it remains there overnight? We say, what's the purpose of this water? That's what it's there for, right? To sanctify your hands and feet, to prepare you for the Beis Hamikdash. Since the beneficiary of this water makes no difference, lina has no impact according to Rabbi Elazar and Rab Shimon. So the same thing with water itself. So the water can sit in the kiyar, even though it's a clay sharis, and even though you left it unattended overnight, it doesn't matter. Even though you didn't lower it with the pulley, it doesn't matter. The Lord, we say, no. This is sitting in a clay sharis, and the laws of clay sharis kick in. Kiva the kiddush of a clay sharis, mivsle. Since it's a clay sharis and you left it overnight, there's lina, it's possible. That's the question. Ki asa Ravin, when Ravin later came on, so that was Avdimi. Later, Ravin from Israel came. We have Avdimi, we have Rav Asi, we have a number of people who came forward and would say things in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Ki and Rabami. Ki asa Ravin Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. When Ravin came and he said name of Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabami, in the name of Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, name of Rabbi Yochanan. And Hadar Pashit Ilfa. Ilfa actually resolved the question. And how did he resolve the question? The same argument that there is between Rebbe and Abelazar of Shimon regarding washing your hands, if every day you have to wash again, the same argument applies to the water of the kir itself, whether the water becomes possible or not. No, according to Abelazar of Shimon, there's no lina by the water of the kir. And according to Rebbe, there is. So Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna said to Ravin, I don't understand. Rebbe Ato, are you really saying this? This is what Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yechon Mashmeid Ilfa. He said the following words: Kir shaloi shakum be'erev. The kir, they didn't lower the pulley system at night. And we said before that's hashaka. It joins the spring water on the bottoms. It didn't do that. Is mekadesh mimenu la'avodas laila for the night service? Burning the fats on the mizbeach. Well, it's nighttime. You're working on the mizbeach, so even though you didn't lower the kir, there's no lina yet for the water of the kir. You can still use it that night. But ulamachar eina mekadesh. But the following day you cannot use it. And then we said. And we said, what does it mean the following day you can't use it? Did he mean is he saying that that the following day, the reason why you don't have to worry about it is because the Eina Mekadesh means you don't have to be Mekadesh, because we follow Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon, who says that that it's good, and the water can still be used the following day. Maybe the water can no longer be used, and therefore Ein Mekadesh means there's no point in using this water to be Mekadesh because it's useless. In other words, there's two ways of understanding Rabbi Yechon, as if Rabbi Yechon did not resolve the question. The question still remains: is the water still effective, or the water not effective? Well, like Pasha we don't know what he meant. Rabbi Yechon meant with these words when he says Ein Mekadesh. Ein Mekadesh means you don't have to be Mekadesh, or Ein Mekadesh means you can't because the water is useless. You're going to tell me Rabbi Yechon resolve the question in the name of Ilfa when Rabbi Yechon himself, Rabbi Ami himself, said he doesn't know what Rabbi Yechon meant. So Gemara continues. So we haven't resolved the question yet. What's the status of the water according to Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon? Tashma coming here. Ben Kotin, there was a kohen whose name was Ben Kotin. Also, Shneim also Dudley Kier, we'll learn more about it later. He made 12 spigots on this kier. That means with a lot of kohenim, take forever lining up there to wash. He made 12 different sources for water so that 12 kohenim at a time can wash their hands. Before we learned 4, a minimum of 4, now we say 12. Afu Oisa, also he made Muchni Likir. So this Ben Koti, he made this pulley system that, with these wheels to lower the barrel and to lift the barrel. Later the Gemara will think it's only for lifting, the kiyar. And the idea was every night they would lower the kiyar with the spring water on the bottom, and the water of the kiyar would join the spring water, and therefore it's not like sitting in the clay shutter, so it's part of the spring water. And every day in the morning they would lift it. So the water should not become possible overnight. Now, the question is, who's the author of this? Is he following Rebbe? Then, of course, according to Rebbe, the water is no good. The Rebbe said even the kohen has to wash his hands again every day. So surely the water in the kir is no good. Or is he following Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon and saying that even though the kohen does not have to wash his hands again, but the water in the kir has to be done properly. Otherwise, if it's lina, it's possible. Now, the Gemara is going to try to prove that this might love Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. Maybe this follows Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. And therefore, we resolved our question that even Rabbi Shimon, the water sitting in the clay shutters is no good once it is lina. Says the Gemara, loino, maybe Rebbe. Maybe it's Rebbe. There's no names here. Maybe Ben Kotin followed Rebbe, and therefore you had to have this pulley system because otherwise the water sitting in the kir is a clay shutters, and it becomes possible with lina overnight. So the Gemara, no. This definitely, the author here, definitely Rav Shimon Elazar. How do I know? Because very quickly, we're going to learn, and we mentioned before already, that there's certain kabbanas that had to be brought up on the north side of the mizbech, like karba chatas. A karba shlamim can be done anywhere in the chatzar, in the azara, but a karba chatas had to be done on the north side. Now, just quickly, just image. There's a picture here in Rashi, so you can see a little bit. You can see here, the north side is to the right of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach then had a ramp on the left side, which is the west, which is the south side. So the north was the right of Mizbeach, and the south was the left of Mizbeach. The Beis Hamikdash was to the west of the Mizbeach, Ma'ariv, and the Mizrach side is how you entered the courtyard. In the Mizrach side, between the entrance and the Mizbeach were 22 amas. 11 amas of closer to the Mizbeach was called the Ezra's Kohanim, and 11 amas closer to the entrance called Ezra's Yisrael. And downstairs, before those 15 steps,
When you're saying this, which way are you facing?
you're facing this picture. Look at the picture, Rashi.
I'm looking at the bottom picture on the right.
Yes, look at the Rashi.
But the north of the Mizbeach
He's to the
is
right.
to the right.
Just said that.
I know, but I didn't understand it.
What part don't you understand? North is Tzafon.
Yeah, but they've drawn the picture of the person and the korban.
I don't know what you're talking about. What picture? I'm looking at Rashi. There's no picture of person.
Oh,
Bottom line is, if you're walking,
okay, diagram.
Okay, I don't know about Archel, but Michael, this is it. You're walking from the Ezra's Noshim towards the Beis Hamikdash. Towards the Beis Hamikdash. When
You're
you walk up
walking
the
in the
15
west
steps,
direction.
when you're walking up the 15 steps towards the Beis Hamikdash,
So you're facing west.
you are facing west, exactly. On your right side is north.
North.
Your left side is south. Now, the first 22 amas of the courtyard is Ezra's Yisrael, followed by Ezra's Noshim, 11 and 11. Then you have the Mizbeach. And then between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash, there was another gap, another space. And then in the Beis Hamikdash, you had the foyer, the ulam, which is like the foyer. And the ulam stretched out. I'm just giving you an introduction so you understand what's going on here. The ulam was much wider, was 15 amas wider on each side of the actual heichel of the Beis Hamikdash. And then you had the heichel. So we have three opinions when it says that the korban chatas had to be done on the north side. Where does it mean? According to Rabbi Yehuda, the north side means parallel to the Mizbeach. That means you have the width of the Mizbeach, and then north of that, to the right of that, is the only place where you can shech the korban chatas. And Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon says the north side is not only the north of the Mizbeach, but also the north of that area between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash. Oh, that entire area of the courtyard, on the right side of the Mizbeach, you can shecht. And Rebbe comes along and says even the 22 amas on the what do you call it, the east side of the Mizbeach, right towards the Ezra's Noshim, you can also shecht if it's on the right side of the Mizbeach. You follow? Now, let's go to this. So now we're going to prove that Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon is the author of this brisa, and if he is the author of the brisa, and it says that you had to have this pulley system, it shows that if he didn't have the pulley system, the water in the kiyur is no good. What's the story here? It says the Gemara, the time you learn, well, it says in the first part of the brisa, it says on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol will go to his par. Upar, where did the Kohen Gadol have the par station? The par, this car was standing between the Mizbech and the Beis Hamikdash. And the head of the cow, we have this in the humor, the head of the cow was facing southwards, and the tail was facing north. But they tilted the head towards the Beis Hamikdash. And the Kohen was standing on the other side of the animal. He was on the east side of the animal. Facing the Beis Hamikdash. All his activities facing the Beis Hamikdash. And he shechted it there, and then he accepted the blood, and he walked straight in, a beeline into the Beis Hamikdash. Now, you're shechting a korban chatas, that's what this korban is, a chatas. But it was not north of the Mizbeach, it was north of between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash. Who says that is good enough? Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. Who said that's considered north? Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. And how do I know that? The Tanya we learned Ezud Tzafon. What's north? Mikir Mizbeach Tzafoni, from the wall of the Mizbeach on the north side, by Kaisar Lazara to the other end of the wall, Tzafoni on the north side. Ukeneged Kalav Kulid Tzafon. The entire width of the Mizbeach is north. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon Moisif. Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon adds Af Beinu Ulam Mizbeach. Also the north side of the Mizbeach between the Beis Hamikdash or this foyer, or antechamber, to the Mizbech. Rebbe adds, Af Mokum Drisis Ragle HaKoinim Mokum Drisis Ragle Yisrael. Also the east side of the Mizbech as well. So right now the Gemara thinks that Rebbe holds that only the north side of the Mizbech and the Ezes Yisrael and the Ezes Koine, but not between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash. Who holds that between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash is also included in those sides of Elazar Shimon? So obviously the author is Bryce of Elazar Shimon, and he says clearly that every day they had to lower the kier to join the water of the spring water. But then it says Avu min hachalifos ulifnim. But you remember behind so I told you the ulam, the foyer, was much wider, 15 amas wider on both sides from the base of Migdash. And behind, if you walked around this ulam, in that section, those 15 amas that was protruding from the base of Migdash, they had rooms, the chambers, and they called it Beis HaChalifas. Rashi says Chalifas is an Arab word for knives. Why they use an Arab word, I'm not sure. Avamina Chalifas, the lifnim. But those rooms, if you stood there, even though it was on the north side of the Mizbeach, if you shechted there, everyone agrees it's no good. Why? How come it is possible? And the reason is because you cannot see the Mizbeach from there because the protrusion of the Ulam is blocking the view to the Mizbeach. Now, so therefore, you want to see clearly it's Rabbi Shimon. So it's clear Rabbi Rab Shimon, resolve your question, he said that you cannot, that every single day, you cannot have the water in the kier staying overnight.
Where was the kier in this diagram?
Sorry, the kier is in front of the Beis Hamikdash. But it doesn't matter where the kier is. What's the relevance of the kier?
No, I'm just wondering where it is because I was talking about it. So
on the left side. So you want to ask the Tizbara, Rebbe, what proof do you have to Rebbe? Maybe it's Rebbe. Maybe it's Rebbe. And you're going to tell me what Rebbe holds that only the Mizbeach and the part from as it's Nosim, as it's Yisrael, it can't be. Which do you think is holier? The part between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash, or the part between the Mizbeach and the entrance? Of course, the part between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash. So if Rebbe holds that even further away from the Beis Hamikdash is good enough, surely he would hold close to the Beis Hamikdash is good enough. So you don't think he argues? Of course, he agrees with Rabbi Shimon, but he adds. So you want to not hochim, this is what we meant to say. It can't be Rebbe. No, I know it's not Rebbe. Because Luke, so why does the Kohen Gadol have to stand? We don't want the Kohen Gadol standing between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash, because it's not nice to stand right in front of the Beis Hamikdash and shech. So if Rebbe holds, you have an option, and that is you can shech on the other side of the Mizbeach, the 22 amas of Ezra's Kohenim, then you should have said, Rebbe should have said, that's where the Kohen should be. Who puts it, the Kohen near the Beis Hamikdash? It must be Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon. Why doesn't he say the Kohen Gadol should be standing with the Kohenim, walking, the other side of the Mizbeach? So you want to ask back. I'll tell you very simply. What do you want to say to Rabbi Elazar Shimon? So let me ask you a question. According to Rabbi Elazar Shimon, since it's not appropriate to shech right next to the Beis Hamikdash, so why didn't he say at least distance it a bit? Do it near the Mizbeach. Do it north of the Mizbeach. Why between the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash? Forget Rebbe. What about Elazar Shimon? And you can answer me. You know you can answer me? Because the Kohen Gadol has a lot. It's a very difficult day for the Kohen Gadol, especially if he's aging. He has to run around and do everything. He does all the work solo. So he has to shech the animal, and at the same time he has to catch the blood, which he has to work very quickly, and then bring it into the Beis Hamikdash. He's tired, exhausted. So therefore, we want him to shech as close as possible to the Beis Hamikdash. Doesn't have to walk any distances. So I don't care whether it's Rabbi Elazar Shimon. I don't care whether it's Rebbe. We'll always have him shech him as close as possible to the Beis Hamikdash. So if Rabbi Shimon look at the Mekim Mizbeach 20, Nazar 20, why not Mizbeach? Elamai is going to tell me Mishum Chulsha Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is weak. You want to bring him as close as possible to the Beis Hamikdash. No Hachanam Mishum Chulsha Kohen Gadol. Even according to Rebbe, because of the weakness of Kohen Gadol, we want to bring close. In other words, you have no proof. We have not resolved the question. The question still remains. And that is, according to Rabbi Elazar Shimon, the Kohen does not have to wash his hands every day. What would it then be with the water, the status of water sitting inside the kier? No resolution. Next din, we learn a number of dinim regarding Kiddush Yadayim Reglaim. Now that we brought it up, we learn a number of dinim. Next din. Rabbi Yechon said, Kiddush Yodav V'Raglav. Now, in the Avodah of the Beis Hamikdash, the first, Amud HaShachar, that's when they started doing all the Avodah. But there was one Avodah that preempted that. That is, they had to do Turmas Hadeshin, where the Kohen would walk up the ramp, go to the Beis Hamikdash, take a little bit of the burnt out wood, and then bring it down the ramp, which is on the south side of the Mizbeach, and put it on the east side of the ramp. So it's not facing the Beis Hamikdash, but the other side. The ramp is blocking the view. and then they would deposit it, and it would sort of disintegrate and mesh with the ground. So that's an avodah also, and he had to wash his hands. So I'm Rabbi Yechon. When somebody washed their hands for Trumas Hadeshin, Lamocher, and the next day, no, it was after Mudah Shachar, Einu Tzarech LeKaddish, doesn't have to wash his hands again. Shekvar Kiddush Mitchilas Avodah. Now he doesn't have to wash his hands again. It sounds like it's the Beroza of Shimon, who says that one day to the next is no problem, right? Before Mudah Shachar is like one day, and after Mudah Shachar is like another day. But Rabbi Yechon adds a reason which sounds like it's not the Beroza of Shimon. He says the reason is, you know why? Shekvar Kiddush Mitchil Avodah. This is like, because this is like the start of the day, even though before Mudah Shachar, so he can continue. I want to know who says that. Lama, who does it
The
go
word
for?
lamachar would mean.
I just told you, Machar means after Mudah Shachar.
I know, but that doesn't make sense.
That,
Usually,
everything makes sense. And you should tell me the answer why it makes sense.
why does it make sense?
Because the rule by Kachim is, what's the rule by Kachim? A day is not like our days. Our days is Laila b'Yom. By Kachim is Halayla Hoylech Achar Hayom. The day starts from a Mudah Shachar. So it's Lamachar. Okay? Says the Gemara. So who does this go according to? Either Rebbe can be, because Rebbe holds it's a new day, you got to wash again. He says it's disqualified. Navas, it's Abelazar of Shimon. According to Abelazar of Shimon, the reason why you don't have to wash again is because it could be 10 days later. As long as you didn't have Etz Chadas, you don't have to wash again. What do you tell me in Maisa? This is like the beginning of the day. That's irrelevant. The Shimon, even 10 days later. So we're going to have two answers here on the argument of Abaye and Rabba, whether Rabbi Yechanan is going according to Rebbe, or Rabbi Yechanan is going according to Elazar ben Shimon. But he departs from the way we learned till now and learns slightly different. So first, Abaye. Abaye is going to tell us that this whole din, Abaye says this, La'olam l'Rebbe. I want you to know that Rabbi Yechanan, no, the contra Elazar ben Shimon, you have 10 days. I mean, you have as long as you want, as long as you're not Masir Das. This follows Rebbe. According to Rebbe, it's a new day. So he says it follows. He says that the lina de Rabbanu. This is not real lina. Real lina is when whatever that is in front of you. You have it inside a clay shutters and you left it overnight. It's possible. Here, there's no water left on your hands. There's nothing there. It's kedusha. This is a ruchenzik thing here, right? You wash your hands. The water is gone. It's absorbed. It's cleaned. It's washed. It's gone. So it's only midrabanan. The Rabbanan said that we treat this like lina. When Rebbe said that you have to wash every day, it's only the Rabbanan, because we don't want people to start thinking that, overnight, not a big deal. But I washed yesterday and it's good enough for today. So it's only with the Rabbanan. So therefore, la'olam Rebbe, the lina Rabbananu. And therefore, Rebbe says, I'll make an exception if you woke up in the morning to do the avodah of Trumas Hadeshin, even though it's still before daybreak, before dawn. Nevertheless, you don't have to wash again in this case. Here, people understand you just woke up for the new day and you wash, it's good enough. Nobody's going to make a mistake and think that we don't care, we disregard lina. And he's moided the mikreis hageber, from when the rooster already makes crows. Ad safra let pastor lina, and that time there between the two, it's not going to disqualify. So that's Abaye's version. That Rabbi Yechon is going according to Rebbe, that the early morning is good enough, even before dawn is good enough. But according to Elazar ben Shimon, you have 10 days. However, Rabbi says no. Really, this is Elazar ben Shimon. But Rabbi Yechon doesn't agree totally with Elazar ben Shimon. What do you mean? According to Rebbe, before dawn, you got to wash again. But Elazar ben Shimon says that you can wash now and it's good enough for a while. Rabbi Yechon says only if it's for that day. Rabbi Yechon says, no, and I agree with Elazar ben Shimon. If it's the beginning of the activities of that day, since this is Tchilas Avodah, the beginning of the day, okay, even though it's a different day, technically, it's good enough. But if the previous night you wash yourself, and then, so you're completing yesterday's work, and now you're starting a new day, you have to wash again. I don't agree with Elazar ben Shimon. So Rabbi Yechon is like a third opinion. Saying, well, ask a question. It's not so simple. Mesa will ask a question. It says there, when the Kohen would go up to the ramp to go ahead, it was totally dark. They didn't light any fires, anything else. It was totally dark. The only fire that was lit was they were sitting on the Mizbeach, a small little fire there. So nobody noticed the Kohen going up the ramp. to do his avodah. But when they would see him coming down, they saw him coming down. Sorry. So they realized the day is starting. So they would all rush. They would come. They hurried. They would wash their hands. We think right now, which kind are we talking about here? We're talking about Kohanim who happened to be there because they were getting, completing the burning of the fats from yesterday and the limbs from yesterday. So the Kohanim were there already. They were already washed from yesterday, but it says it clearly that when the new day started, they had to wash again. They had to wash again. So now the Gemara's like this.
So when was the kiyah brought up from the stream? What time?
We're not talking about that was done at a certain time over there. It could have brought up any. You'll see in a minute. We'll discuss all that soon about the kiyah itself. Now, and we'll see later. By the way, you don't need a kiyah to wash your hands. Any clay sharis in the Beis Hamikdash that had water in it, you can use that to wash your hands. The kiyah was a preference, but it didn't have to be. Says the Gemara. Makes sense according to Abaya. Abaya understood Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon is learning like Rebbe that you can wash your hands before dawn and it's good enough. So Abaya the Muklak Rebbe looks like Rebbe. The Rebbe agrees. The Mikrais Hagever Tzafra Le Poselina you can wash even before dawn from the first service. So Hamani Rebbe, who's the author of this din over here, Rebbe, that they all ran running to wash their hands. Why? What they washed yesterday was no good. Even though they're all working on the Mizbeach, it's a new day. But even though it's a new day, Rebbe says you can wash before dawn, it's good enough. So then it makes sense that this follows Rebbe. But my problem is, what did Rava say? Rava said, according to Rebbe, you can't wash there early in the morning. It's too early. It's no good. So they couldn't have washed it according to Rebbe. Must be Rabbi Lazar Rav Shimon. But if it's Rabbi Lazar Rav Shimon, then El Rav the Muklah of Rav Shimon, according to Rebbe, Mikrais Hagever Atzafra Postla Lina. But according to Rebbe, if you wash before dawn, it's no good. So I have a problem. Hamani, who is the author of this Bryce? Rebbe, if it's Rebbe Postla he says it doesn't help washing before dawn. You have to wait till after dawn. So it can't be Rebbe. It said these kohanim before dawn would see the kohen there doing the Kibbutz Hadeshin. They would all wash their hands too early. So it can't be Rebbe. According to Rava's version, who must it be? Rabbi Shimon. But according to Rabbi Shimon, the kohanim they were still there doing their avodah. They washed yesterday. You don't have to wash again at all. Rabbi Shimon, from the Kaddish. He holds that if you wash that one day, you can last for 10 days. So why wash again at all? Says he, well, that's not a problem. You know why? Rabbi Shimon. But who told you we're talking about the kohanim who were there from last night? You thought we're talking about the kohanim who were there already doing the avodah. They already washed up and they're continuing. Then you have a problem. We're talking here about kohanim that were not there from yesterday. They just woke up in the morning. They slept in the basement, learned Karmatamin, how the whole thing worked, and they woke up now and they're going to work. Therefore, Rabbi Shimon says, go wash. Even though it's before dawn, I have no problem with that. Even though it's like a separate day, who cares? No problem. Okay, next question. We have another question. Remember, again, we're honing in on this din of washing your hands and your legs and your feet. What happens, Yitzia? What happens? He walked out. The kohen walked out of the Beis Hamikdash, and then comes back in. Does he have to wash again or not? Do we say they have to wash again, or do we say that you don't have to wash again? What effect does it have walking out? Says the Gemara. Toil means that the toil means it doesn't mean help in a positive way, help in a negative way. By walking out, you canceled your Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, you gotta do it again, or not. If you're gonna tell me that Lina Loi Pasla, if you're gonna tell me that staying overnight does not possible at all, does not possible, you stayed overnight, you don't have to wash again. The Loi Padish, I can say, you know why? You never left the Beis Hamikdash. And this is maybe worse. I mean, even according to Rabbi Lazar of Shimon, you wash it to last for a long time, but maybe walking out is like you put an end to the previous washing, you got to do it again. But if walking out, maybe you were Masir Das. Or perhaps, we started off talking about Yitzhi, and then we talk about Hesed Chadash. So the way Rashi learns is like a double question here. Tosfos argues and he says he doesn't agree with Rashi at all. Rashi first focuses on Yitzhak walking out. And then he says that even if you tell me that Yitzhak itself is not a problem, but maybe there's another issue here called Hesach Hadas. Maybe there's an issue of Hesach Hadas here because when you walked out, you're probably not thinking of doing Avodah anymore. When you walked out, you can't do Avodah outside the base of Mikdash. So Rashi is learning that we're asking one question, like two layers here. And Tosfos learning we're only talking about Hesach Hadas. We're not concerned about Yitzhak at all. Anyway, the question is, how do we view Yitzhak? Do you have to wash your hands again or not? Says the Gemara Toshma coming in. It says Kiddush Yodav V'Raglov. You washed your daim b'raglayim, v'nitmu, and then you became tummy. Okay, we're not talking about Yitzhak, we're talking about tummy, and we'll talk more about this later. And you became tummy. Matbilan. All you have to then do, you don't even have to wash your hands, from the spigot. Sink your hands, dip your hands in, and that's good enough. Ein tzarich l'kaddish, and you don't have to be mekadosh. But then it says. Yotzo, if you walked out, harei hein b'kedushasim. If you walked out, what do you walked out? If you extend your hands out of the base of Mikdash, you don't even have to do that. So it's clearly from here that walking out is not a problem. Says what are you talking about? Yotzo yodav. This case is talking about where you stretch your hands outside of the base of Mikdash. Like we have the question: if you're still standing inside the base of Mikdash, you just put your hands outside. There's no hesach hadas over here because you're still in the base of Mikdash. You plan to do more avodah. Our question is: yotzekol gufimai. Your entire body. You walked out. What's the din then? Is it considered hesach hadas or not?
What's pshat of the nitmo?
Sorry.
What's pshat the nitmo? How did it say dunking his hands in? He's got to go to the mikveh. I mean, he's Tomei.
Yeah, we're talking about, okay, good question. We're talking about here, Tomei. There's two kinds of tum. There's generally a tumah mahatayra. There's a tumah midrabanan. We're talking about it here that your hands became Tomei midrabanan, and only your hands are Tomei. How is only your hands Tomei? If you touch noiser, leftover carbon, if you touch pigul, the din is that you're only that we had more psachim that only the Chachamim came along and said that your hands become tummy. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. That people are very careful with noiser pigul, so we made a law that your hands are tummy. And because only your hands are tummy, not the rest of your body, all you have to do is dip your hands in, and that's good enough. But if you took your hands outside the base of Mikdash, you have to do nothing. Nothing happened. But you
dip your hands in the mikveh.
Sorry.
Dip your hands in a mikveh.
Not a mikveh. You could dip it in the kier. In the kier.
Doesn't affect the water in the kier?
No, it cleanses it. When you go to mikveh, what happens to the mikveh?
You make it dirty.
Okay, but the water doesn't become tummy, does it? So, Mike, our question is, you walked out, entire body, what happens? Toshma, come in here. It says, what happens if somebody was not didn't wash themselves properly? Is mekadesh b'klei shodes b'fnim? What should he do? He's inside the base of Mikdash. He doesn't necessarily have to use the kier. He can use any klei shodes inside the base of Mikdash is good enough to wash your hands. You can use a kier as well, obviously, but any klei shodes. Kiddush. What happens if kiddush b'klei shodes b'chutz? You wash your hands from a klei shodes, but outside of the base of Mikdash. Oy b'klei chol. Or you use an ordinary keli, not a klei shodes, not one that was designated to use base of Mikdash, but b'fnim, inside. Or you went and you dipped in according to Rashi, talking about you dipped entirely in a mikveh, in a proper mikveh. Spring water or a meimayra is like a proper mikveh. V'avad, and you went ahead and you worked in the base of Mikdash. All of these three instances, avodas psula.
What exactly the kiddush was pouring? Is it?
Kiddush is you have to pour. There were spigots there. You have to pour on your hands. And that's what the kiddush was. And what do you call it? Yesterday we had how you put your hands up. Another kind stands there and pours the water. Opens the spigot and pours the water on you. So and metabel is not the way to do it. So the three cases we just learned, and that is you use a klei shodes, but you did it outside the base of Mikdash, no good. You did it inside the base of Mikdash, but it was not a klei shodes, no good. Or you went to the mikveh. No good either. You have to follow the prescription of the Torah. Now, what happens? Now it seems to me a timer. The whole problem is you use the clay shutters outside of the base of English. What would be if you use the clay shutters inside the base of English, but then you walked out? That would be all right. Otherwise, it would say a bigger chiddush. Even if you washed inside the base of English, but then you walked out, you have to wash again. Or if you didn't, avodas psula would be a bigger chiddush. Time of the kiddush because the only reason what's the problem is because you washed outside. How kiddush if you did inside the yacht, you walked out if it was a shada. So it seems clear to me that avodas that if you walk out, it's not an interruption and it's kosher. Says the Gemara, no raya. Dilma, maybe when it says over here that you washed b'klei shara b'chutz, doesn't mean that you were standing outside and you washed. Maybe it's talking about you were standing inside and your hands were outside and you washed it outside. It's a problem. But if you taka would have washed it inside and then you took your hands outside, it'd be all right. We're not discussing a case where you walked out entirely from the base of English, because then it's obvious it's no good. So the Gemara, so no proof one way or another. Hey, you stretch your hands outside. The kiddush you mekadosh. How kiddush b'fnim? But if you tackle with mekadosh inside, the yotz and you walked out. The api yodei lebara, you stretch out your hands out like sheda. Our question is, you walked out entirely. Papa said, okay, let me try to answer your question. If you're walking out, what's the din? Do you have to wash again or not? Tashma coming here. It says, if you walked out, if you walked out from the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, so it depends. Im lishais, if you walked out to spend some time there, ton tefillah, you have to table. Sounds like it because of hesed chadas. But im lishai, you walked out for a short time, then ton kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. You have to wash your hands and feet. Clearly here it says, you walked out. You need a kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Resolve your question.
What's
said
walked
no.
out again? Does it mean he walked into the Ezrat HaNashim or something?
Walked outside of the base of Midrash. We're talking about outside Azora, everywhere. Outside as Nashim as well. Amalei said, so Rapapa said, no proof. Maybe he's talking about, you know what it means, a long time and a short time? Here it's talking about you actually did an activity. For example, hasek expression we use whenever you have to, defecate. We use the expression lahasek raglo. When you have to excrete, we say lahasek raglo because you squat on your legs. So lahasek raglo, it takes a long time. So then you have to go to the mikveh to come back and do your work. Lahatul mayim, or if you're just going to urinate, so then it's you just have to wash your hands. It's not talking about if you just walk out. We're not talking about that case. Here we're talking about you did something that you have to clean yourself to start because it's mias, or because droplets might be on your feet, or whatever it is. So it's not appropriate. So you have to go through the process again.
So the kohen had to walk out of the base of Mikdash to go to the toilet?
Yeah. And we're worried that there might be droplets on his legs. So therefore he has to, and the excrement we're worried about, might be some leftover traces. So therefore he has to go to make. So nothing to do with our question, which is simply walking out. Do you have to go back in again? Says the Gemara, how can that be the case? It says clearly in the Mishnah, that anybody that says it has to go and defecate requires a mikveh. And urinate, you just go wash your hands and feet. It's some fashion Mishnah. What do you need the Bryce to tell me the same thing? Says the Gemara, what do you mean? You have some time. The Mishnah says something, and the Bryce expands on it. No proof one way or another. Toshma coming in, another proof. Potter, what about a potter? Rabchia by Yosef said, when it comes to the potter Duma, now the potter Duma, they did all the activities in the Harazasim, facing the Beis Hamikdash. So potter Rabchia by Yosef says, Mekadesh b'klei shader b'fnim. So what you do is he says you wash your hands inside the Beis Hamikdash, and then you walk out and do all the activities outside. And Rabbi Yechina says, since all the activities are outside, afilu b'chutz. You can wash your hands even outside. Even using an ordinary keli. There's no real washing here. Even an ugly keli made out of clay. But what did Chiba Yosef say? You wash inside the base of Mikdash. Sounds like you need to wash properly, and yet you walk right out. What's the point of washing if the din is when you walk out, it cancels the washing? What's the point? So clearly from here you can see that you wash your hand, you walk out, it doesn't cancel the washing. Papa says, part of them is different. Shiny part of hoya b'chol maaseh b'chutz, because all those activities are outside. Because all of his tears, because all the activities are outside, it doesn't anyway cancel your activities. In fact, more than that, as others ask, there's no hesech hadas over here. If the way Toshis learned, it's only to do with hesech hadas. You're going in order to shech the paraduma. Where does hesech hadas come in? What's even the question? This is a source for Rashi saying that there was two questions, multiple questions. One is just walking out. Does that cancel it? And the second one was hesech hadas. From paraduma, at least we can answer. There's no hesech hadas over here because you're going to shech the korban, but there is yitziyah. And the question was whether yitziyah also cancels your washing. And here we see it doesn't. So we're saying that maybe paraduma is different because all the activities are outside, therefore it doesn't cancel the thing. The question is, so if all the activities are outside, it's not really part of the base of Mikdash. So why at all? Why are you doing the whole? Why are you going through the exercise when you're doing all the avodah outside anyway? Why are you doing the exercise? Especially according to Chiyah Yosef, where you do a proper kiddush dayan. Why? Says because at the end of the day, it's like a karbachatas. Even though we learned before it's better kabayis, it's like karbachatas. We want to, as much as possible, it should resemble all other kabbanas. Okay, so again, no proof one way or another. We're asking a series of questions and we don't really have an answer. Next one. Now let's talk about Tumah. Okay, we talked about Yitzhak, we didn't resolve it. Tumah. What about, let's say if your hands become Tameh, Ma'u should toil, the kid should die. If your hands become Tameh, does it cancel your washing? You got to wash again. If you're going to resolve my earlier question, that Yitzhak loy paslo, just walking out doesn't disqualify, I can argue, you know why? Because the Gavra Chazi, the person can just walk right back in. He's all right. The Gavra loy Chazi, here the person, while he's tamei, this person is disqualified from being a kohen. So therefore, asuche masir daite. So that's like hesech hadas. He's not capable right now of doing any avodah. So maybe tum is worse. Or perhaps you can say it's not worse because kim the he just go to mikveh and cleanse himself. So therefore, it's up to him to become Torah again. So it's not like there's a hesech hadas. Is dokle? He'll be careful. V'lo masir daite. He won't be masir das. So my question is, what does tumah do? Says the Gemara, Toshma coming here. Kiddush yad v'raglav. We just learned before. Kiddush yad v'raglav. Let's say you're mekadosh, your hands and your feet. Benitmu, you became tamei. What did we say before? Madbilan. That what do? You table the ein tzarich lekadosh. No, we talk about a case where your hands become tamei. All you have to do is dip it in, and you don't have to kaddish your hands again. So it says clearly here that you don't have to wash again. Says the Gemara, that case again, nitmu yodot, just like by Yitzhak, we said, we're not worried about if your hands protruded from the base of Mikdash. Of course, it's not a problem. We're talking about if you walked out entirely. The same thing here. That's talking about when nitmu yodot, your hands became tamei. How? It's only with the rabbanon. You touch noisa, you touch pigul. The leiva boiler, we have no question. It doesn't cancel because you're really not tamei. Kima boiler. Our question is nitmu kol gufa. If your entire body becomes tamei, what happens then? Says the Gemara, kol gufa. If he became tamei totally, what's it then if you become totally tamei? That even if you go to the mikveh, you said the point is that you can go to the mikveh and become clean straight away, but you can't, because what happens when you go to the mikveh? Then you have to wait for the sun to set. So there's plenty of time that you cannot work, so you'll be hesech hadas. So what's your question? Take the kingdom by the mevet have Hashem. You have to wait for the sun to set. That's masir daiti. He's masir das. Says the Gemara, no, we're talking about a case where you're going to eat he became tummy 5 minutes before the sun set, so therefore he knew that he's going to continue working based on English. He wasn't Masir Das. What's the din then? Does the tumah cancel or not? Says the Gemara, Toshma, come in here. We had before. Pora dumba by pora dumba. Where do you wash your hands? The says, you wash your hands inside, the Yotzi go out. And Rabbi Yechina says, no, there's no real washing here. I feel the bechutz, I feel the outside, I feel the klei, ordinary, mundane keli, I feel the bakir v'cheres, an ugly earthenware. Now, what are we talking about? What's the din by pot? Very interesting. The what do you call it? We learned from a pasuk we had before, ha tahor, that even if you're only partially tahor, you can already be involved. So we learned before that somebody's a tful yom, a kohen who had to go to became tamei, went to the mikveh. Normally, you have to wait till the sun sets, but by paraduma you don't, because it says twice. The second time hatoir, but the Tukim didn't agree. They held that you have to be You have to wait for the sun to set. So the Chachamim, to show those dukim how wrong they are, you have to listen to the Rosh Chachamim, decided that every kohen who's involved in the Parah Aduma had to be a Tvul Yom, and not to wait for the sun to set, to disprove the opinion of, or discredit completely the opinion of the dukim. Now, the Tmuyim Mitaminle, we are Mitame, the kohen. We make sure the kohen becomes Tameh. In other words, he washes his hands, and he washes his hands and he starts the avodah, and then before he shechts it, and then before he burns it, we make him tameh. And there's a place there for him to go to the mikveh. And therefore he's at full yoim, and then he continues the activities. But now we learn metameh the kohen is part. We said metameh the kohen burns the part. Mabil noisay, and then they would put him in the mikveh. This was the discredited dukim. I mean, they would say the muravi shemesh. They would say no, you have to wait for the sun to set. So Achabid Dafka used this cooler and had a kohen who was tameh and then went to the mikveh, and that was good enough. But what do we see from here? Shma mina loy pasla ba tumah, and you didn't have to wash again. According to Rabbi Chia, you had to wash inside the base of Mikdash and then go out. He didn't tell him go back to the base of Mikdash and wash your hands again. So clearly here, we made his entire person tameh, and yet he didn't have to wash again. Doesn't that resolve your question? Answer your question. Tumah does not cancel. Says what again? Shiny para. You cannot bring a simile from para. Hoyil the tful yom loy possible. Everywhere else, a tful yom has to wait for the sun to set. Here, a tful yom does not have to wait for the sun to set. To show that the whole entire set of laws here are different, and that's why you didn't cancel the washing you did in the base of Mikdash. Says so why bother washing at all? It's a whole different set of rules. So again, we say, we would like you to resemble the avodah of the base of Mikdash.